The New York Jets have officially begun calling head coach and general manager candidates back for second interviews. Aaron Glenn will conduct his second interview with the team tomorrow at the team's facility. A lot to get into. We'll break it down and much more, all coming up here on a Monday edition of NY Flight Jets Talk, joined by Antwan Staley.
Jets, Jets, let's go.
Jets wide receiver Wesley Walker. Wesley, how you doing today? ESPN writer Mr. Rich Cimini, Jets reporter for The Athletic, Mr. Zach Rosenblatt, Hall of Famer and Jets legend Mr. Marty Lyons.
Your host, Connor Law.
Hello everyone. Welcome into another edition of NY Flight Jets Talk, show number 2 on the day, Monday, January 20th, 2025, and a lot to get into today. Aaron Glenn will be conducting his second head coach interview with the team. It seems as of now he is the front runner for the position, but we'll break it down and much more all coming up here, joined by Antwan Staley on NY Flight Jets Talk. Smash the like button. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. We appreciate all your support, but let's bring on our guest. For today's show, he covers the team for the New York Daily News, Antwan Staley, joining us here again on the program. Antwan, busy day. How you doing?
I'm all right. How you doing?
I'm doing well. A lot to get into. I guess where I'll start is the Aaron Glenn news. He has seemed to be a front runner for the position for weeks now, and it's official that he will have his second interview with the team tomorrow. Antwan, do you think there's any chance the Jets don't let him leave the building and don't let him go to New Orleans on Wednesday and they just straight up offer him a contract tomorrow?
I mean, they could. I mean, he could still leave the building. I mean, it's probably going to be up to him, I would imagine. You would think. I thought the general manager search would end before the coaching search, but I think in this case with Aaron Glenn and the Lions losing on Saturday night, I think it's kind of facilitated a little bit quicker to the point where the Jets were highly interested in Glenn. Obviously, the Saints are also interested in Glenn too. So it's just going to depend on where he sees the best fit and where he wants to land.
Now, this news comes, and Glenn is going to be he's going to be the first candidate, to get a second interview, whether it's for the head coach or general manager job. Antwan, do you think there's any shot they allow the next head coach to pick the general manager, whether it's Aaron Glenn, whether it's Arthur Smith or a Matt Nagy? Do you think there's any chance that happens?
I mean, I think they want a partnership between the two. So I don't know if Aaron Glenn would pick him per se, but it might be somebody that he knows and has worked with in the past. So to have that type of relationship, I definitely think that would be beneficial to the Jets and also the general manager and the coach too. Because that way, you can kind of bounce stuff each other. Like you're not missing and matching either. Like you want to have a good correlation between the two sides. So I don't know if they'll necessarily let him pick the general manager, more or less than him just knowing it'll be somebody that he has familiarity with.
Now, Antwan, Brian Costello of the New York Post appeared on ESPN Radio yesterday with Jake Asman, and he said he expects the Jets to kind of go a lower risk route, just given how much pressure is on Woody Johnson to get this hire right. Antwan, when I heard that, the two names that came to my mind were pretty scary, and that's Arthur Smith and that's Matt Nagy. When you hear that quote from Kaz, who are the names that jump to your mind for a finalist for this job?
I mean, it could, if it's not Aaron Glenn, then yeah, it could be one of those guys too as well. I mean, those guys have prior head coaching experience. The Jets don't necessarily want somebody that that's inexperienced, like in both positions too at the same time. But it might be by coincidence that they have a first-year general manager and a first-year head coach. But they did that the last time when they hired, Joe Douglas and also Robert Saleh also separately. So it could be a situation where, let's say that Glenn turns down the Jets, then you might land with a Matt Nagy who has experience, maybe a Steve Spagnuolo, also a guy that also has head coaching experience, and also Arthur Smith, who also has that head coach.
Yeah.
Neither is good, but there have been guys, and it's as I've said this before, guys that have failed in their first opportunity, but they've also had success in their second opportunity. Thinking about Bill Belichick and also Pete Carroll as well.
Antwan, as the Jets kind of whittle this list down for the head coaching candidates, who do you expect to be the finalists alongside Glenn?
I mean, it may just be Glenn if they offer him the
Okay.
job. So, I mean, if that's the case, then, I wouldn't be surprised by that. Other guys, like we talked about Matt Nagy there, I imagine also a guy like you said, Arthur Smith to also get some interest there too. Those would probably be the names that I would look for. Also, Brian Flores, I'll throw his name in there as well. They really like him. And if if Aaron Glenn were to turn them down, I wouldn't be surprised if they were to pivot towards Flores, who does have that prior head coaching experience with the Dolphins.
Now, I guess let's move over to the general manager position, Antwan. The Jets are yet to call any candidates back for a second interview. Where do you think the Jets kind of go there? A name that's really garnered a lot of attention recently is John Eric Sullivan, the Packers vice president of player personnel, after their general manager said, quote, he will be missed. And the only job he's interviewed, except for the Titans job, where Borgonzi is now, is the Jets job. Mike Greenberg is a name that has been floated around quite a ton. Alec Hallaby joins that list as well. What direction do you think the Jets really go here? Because we've heard experience before, but at the same time, Samini lists out those three names, which he thinks are going to be the guys who are garnering the most buzz, and he thinks those will be the three finalists, yet they're all first-timers. So, what are the Jets really thinking right now as they narrow down these lists?
I mean, you kind of took the words out of my mouth. So I'll throw another one in there, maybe Brian Gaines from Buffalo too.
Yes.
Assistant general manager as well. I think he has some familiarity in the organization as well. So that's also another name to look at. But other than those guys, like I mean, that's a little bit more of a fluid situation. I don't think it's necessarily we can pinpoint who's going to be the finalist there as opposed to maybe head coach there. So yeah, those would be the four names that I probably heard the most. If I had to pick out of those guys, then I definitely would say Sullivan and probably Greenberg would be the guys that I would choose first and foremost at the top.
Antwan, the Jets have interviewed so many general manager candidates. Could you see any world where they do something similar to what the Carolina Panthers did just last offseason? They interviewed all those guys, and then they made two hires at the general manager position, and then they brought in the vice president of football ops. Could you see the Jets going that route? Could that potentially explain why they've interviewed all these guys? Whether it's promises to agents, the reason I just listed, or the Jets just really want to get a grip on everyone?
They just want a thorough search, like they've said they wanted to. I mean, the coaching search has been thorough as well. I mean, they've interviewed 16 guys and they've interviewed 15 for a general manager.
Yeah.
So I don't see any, like, from what I understand, that's probably not in the cards where they're going to have a football ops there. I know that's been asked by various people. Seems like it's going to be a traditional general manager and a traditional coach role.
Yeah, so all these candidates the Jets have interviewed, they're only going to be able to pick one. So I do expect them. I mean, when do you think is a proper timetable for the Jets to get someone in the building? We heard mid to end of last week, but there was no move made. Do you think this is the week where they get a general manager or a head coach in the building?
I think it'll be something that'll happen by the end of the week. I don't know what that is or something to be named officially. I don't know if they'll have a press conference this week, but I imagine one or the other, if not both, will probably be named this week. I know they want to get second interviews with general managers this week too as well.
Now, I'm going to backtrack to a point I made about John Eric Sullivan. All of his experience as an executive comes with the Packers. So I'd say his connections for the head coaching jobs, unless they want to just go full arranged marriage mode, what they did with Saleh and Douglas, and McCagnon, Gase, Bowles, all those guys. Let's say the Jets wanted to kind of, bring in someone who the head coach and general manager were connected to each other at some point. Could you see any world, Antwan, they hire John Eric Sullivan, but they haven't interviewed Mike McCarthy, which is pretty mind-boggling to me, and maybe they give him an interview after, maybe like an Alec Hallaby and a Kellen Moore, something like that? Or do you think they're going to just try to stay within the guys they've interviewed?
I think at this point it seems like their interview, like they're probably done with coaching interviews.
Yeah.
I would think maybe, although they have requested Joe Brady and he is not, the interview with there, so that could be a potential marriage there. But yeah, it seems like these are the guys. I mean, it's a ton. Like you have a lot to go by. So I imagine at this point, unless something crazy were to happen, then yeah, I probably don't see Mike McCarthy or Cliff Kingsbury's, but another guy people have asked me about. Ben Johnson's, that's not on the cards there either as well. So it seems like the guys they have interviewed to this point are going to be one of those guys most likely.
I'm sure just being in these rooms, conducting these interviews, if you're Rick Spielman or Mike Tannenbaum, you really get to know the organization. Obviously, Tannenbaum is the history, was the general manager here for a handful of seasons. Once this search is all done, could you see maybe Rick Spielman and Mike Tannenbaum sticking around in some sort of consulting role, or you think this is pretty much just a one-time thing and they move on?
Yeah, I think it's just a one-time thing. I mean, they did this before. I mean, they did it with the Commanders when they hired, when they helped I won't say hired, but helped hire Dan Quinn, who's having a tremendous run right now. So yeah, I don't think that's necessarily in the cards there. I think it's just a relationship where they're trying to give Woody Johnson and the Jets organization as many names and information as possible.
Josh McCown has been a hot name this coaching cycle. Adam Schefter said he's not leaving Minnesota unless it's for a head coaching job. He's someone who interviewed for the Texans job in 2021, 2022. He's a front runner for the position. Obviously has a history with the Jets. He was born a leader. From what I've heard, there's never someone you'll find who goes, I don't like Josh McCown. He's not a born leader. He's not a natural leader. He's not a nice guy. Thoughts on the potential of bringing in Josh McCown as head coach with a veteran staff around him? Maybe you bring in a veteran play caller like Doug Peterson, who he played under as the offensive coordinator. And then defensive side of the ball, I mean, he played under Lovie Smith, Mike Pettin. They're both on the staff in Minnesota get together. So I think there is a way the Jets could potentially work this out if they really wanted to. I mean, hey, I think there's a world where he can come in and maybe Doug Peterson's his offensive coordinator and Doug Peterson calls plays. I was just looking, Antwan, before we came on the show, 14 of the 32 head coaches in the league actually call plays. So more than half of the coaches in the league don't actually call plays. When I think of the head coach position, I think of a CEO and a natural leader. And I think that's pretty much what Josh McCown brings to the table here. It would be a big swing, but the goal is to win a Super Bowl here. We haven't made the playoffs in 14 seasons. I think it's time the Jets take a big swing here and bring in a young, innovative offensive mind.
The only problem with that, yeah, he has no offensive coordinator experience, and then on top of that, no head coaching experience. So I think it might be a radical move by them. Like, I mean, could it work if let's say Aaron Glenn turns you down or Brian Flores decides to go somewhere else? Yeah, that might be a name that you could decide to go with too as well. Depending on what his staff may look like, you might feel a little bit more comfortable with it. I don't know, me personally, just kind of what I heard. I don't know if I feel comfortable bringing in somebody that type of experience, because the Jets got to get this right. Like, I mean, you really have to get this right at this point. I mean, as you alluded to, it's been 14 years since they made the playoffs, and they've gotten worse. Really, at this point, they're not they're not even considered contenders at this point. They're really an afterthought. And then you got the Patriots, and they end up hiring Mike Vrabel. You have to if you get this wrong again, then you risk being in the bottom. Being a bottle feeder, not just your division, but the whole conference as well.
Now, Antwan, did you cover Brian Flores in Miami, or was he just
Yeah, a
after
little
your
bit, yeah, for a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we all know the reports that came out of there, him alienating players, Tua not wanting to be a captain under, him being a head coach, reportedly going behind the front office's back and trying to orchestrate a deal for Deshaun Watson. But at the same time, they were trying to bring in Tom Brady and Sean Payton behind Brian Flores' back. Antwan, do you view him as someone who could have potentially learned from his mistakes and he could be a top candidate for the Jets this cycle? Or do you see the Jets looking and saying, hey, we have enough drama. This guy just sued the Miami Dolphins a few years ago. We don't need to add, someone else to this circus.
Well, I mean, if they felt that way, then they probably wouldn't have brought him in. So I think,
Okay.
just kind of learning this, listening to what he's had to say and just talking to a few people. It seems like he has learned from his mistakes too, as well. How that translates to him being a coach again, I'm not necessarily sure. I'm not even sure if the Jets may or may not be the right place for him. But it seems like he has learned a lot from that situation. Obviously, there was a big power struggle there between the Dolphins and himself, and he didn't necessarily like Tua. And you can say whatever you want to about him, but I think some of his concerns, I won't say all of them, but some of his concerns were very valid about Tua. I mean,
Yes.
Tua
he didn't want Tua too, particularly. Let's make that clear too.
Correct. I mean, Tua has been labeled, whatever you want to call it, like whatever you want to say about Tua. The thing is, like, availability is an ability, and then let's face it, like, the man has not been available, really since he's gotten the league outside of one season, which was 23. Suffered a lot of injuries there, and I feel like it's really hindered, the Dolphins' progress of trying to be a, major player in the AFC. And until, that happens or they get an adequate backup situation, I don't know. I think the Dolphins are kind of stuck in the mud there a little bit. So, and also, Miami is kind of a soft team. I mean, they're not necessarily a team that you think, especially when you talk about going in these cold weather places and late December and January, they kind of fold up and, don't play as well as they could, especially considering their team from South Florida. I mean, we even saw it, although I think Dolphin fans will be quick to point out that, the Broncos were killing the Chiefs in week 18, and it seems like they might have take their foot off the gas a little bit. Whatever the case may be, the Dolphins just seem like when they get outside in cold elements, then they don't play necessarily as well. So I think, it was Flores that was right to have some concerns about just the organization and also Tua, but probably the way he could have handled it a lot better as far as just supporting his quarterback, even though that might have not been his first choice. I'm sure he probably would have told you with a lot of other stuff that he wishes he would have done that differently.
Antwan, I know you got to go, so I'll end with this last question here for you. Aaron Rodgers, he's a talk of the town. I'm sure that's a situation that's brought up in a lot of these head coach and GM interviews. I could go on and on why I do not think he's the right option at the quarterback position for the Jets next season. Are there any GMs or head coaches that catch your eye and you're like, yep, I think they'll want Aaron Rodgers back next season, or they will not want Aaron Rodgers back next season? One that comes to mind right away is Mike Greenberg. I feel if Mike Greenberg gets this GM job, he is going to cut Aaron Rodgers the first day he's on the job, just because he's looking and he's this cap expert. Well, you cut him now, you only owe him $49 million compared to you bring a 41 who's going to be 42 years old next season, who struggled with accuracy. Looks like he's 90 years old back there. The Achilles injury, he's one more hit and his career could be over at this point. I think that's how I really view this situation. Is there anyone you think will really want him back or not want him back under any circumstance?
I mean, I think if it's a first-time head coach, not to put any names on it, I think the chances of him coming back are probably slimmer than it
Okay.
would be a veteran coach too, maybe like a Brian Flores or Arthur Smith, one of those names, maybe a Matt Nagy, because you got a guy like Aaron Glenn. I would imagine you don't want somebody like that, and it's no disrespect to Aaron, to really undermine what you're trying to do, trying to build your program. And on top of it, as you alluded to, it's cap ramifications with that. I don't think a lot of people are understanding that when you talk about bringing back Aaron Rodgers. Like, you kind of mess up your cap if you do. And what do you do it for? What, just to make the playoffs for a year? And then all of a sudden, like, you're gonna have to start rack over anyway. So you might as well just start the process over now. Get it, what I think they should do, and I've been, advocate of saying this. 25 is probably not going to be a great year for the Jets.
No.
I mean, I know a lot of Jets fans, want to make the playoffs, want to end the streak or whatever. You need to get your cap situation straightened out first and foremost. Get all the bad contracts off of the books. Kind of start over, not completely start over, because I think they have a good nucleus there. 25 probably just to watch there, and then get your cap situation. Sort of what the Patriots did this year. You get ready for 26, and you'll probably have a lot of money to spend. You can be able to spend it on free agents. Maybe then you can then draft the quarterback, or maybe choose one in free agencies if one becomes available, and then start it that way too. Because keeping Aaron for a season just to make the playoff, just to end the streak, that's not really helping anybody long term either. It's really like a short term band-aid solution that eventually is just going to get ripped off anyway. So I don't understand, just the logic of just bringing somebody back when clearly, like, they had 2 years of the great. I'm not saying it's Aaron's fault, but it did not work for 2 years. So now you're starting to do something else.
Yeah, I 1000% agree. My whole mentality is the goal of this search is to find someone who's going to help you win a Super Bowl. That is the goal for every single NFL team. You want to win a Super Bowl. This is I think the worst scenario next season, Antwan. They hire Arthur Smith, they bring back Aaron Rodgers, they sneak into the playoffs in 9-8. Woohoo, we broke the 14 season playoff drought. Then you go up to Buffalo and lose 40-0 the first round. Like, that's not exciting, and then you set yourself back another 5 years. That is not exciting whatsoever. Also, for those who are saying, well, just restructure Aaron Rodgers, bring him back on a new deal. Some of the signing bonuses, the option bonuses, if you bring him back on a restructured deal, you are still going to have to owe him that money. It is just going to be pushed down the road. Which is even worse than just having him play on this deal. So, just bottom line.
Contracts got you in this mess to begin with Joe Douglas. He was famous for that, and that's why they're in the cap
and the
situation.
RAS score.
That's why they're the cap situation that they're in. So now it's time to start over fresh, especially with a new general manager, and improve that situation, because you're not going to have a lot of money to spend compared to some of the other teams out there in the league.
Antwan, I appreciate you joining me. I know you got to run. Great stuff as always. So happy to have you on. You got any final thoughts?
No, just people can find my work at nydailynews.com and just on social media at Antwan Staley.
Antwan, hopefully we get someone in the building this week, and hopefully there's something exciting to root for the rest of this offseason. Hopefully some big names. Have a great rest of your day.
All right, thank you.
Of course. Ladies and gentlemen, Antwan Staley checking in. Follow him on all social media platforms at Antwan Staley. Read his work, New York Daily News. I'm going to stay on here for a little longer, take your calls, answer your questions. Smash the like button. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Your support means a ton to the show. 32 of you guys watching on YouTube, only 18 likes. Guys, come on. Smash the like button. It's completely free. Subscribe if you haven't already. Don't forget about our membership raffle. Leaderboard is down below. Prizes this month. Garrett Wilson signed mini helmet. Wayne Corbett signed football free item from our merch store and a channel emoji. So be sure to get on that if you haven't already and add to your raffle tickets. The more the merrier, guys. I appreciate your support on the program. Like the video. Hit subscribe if you want to call into the show. Pin comment in the chat. Get your questions in. We'll go over to the phone lines. Our guy Dan from the Jets Afterburners podcast is joining us here on the program. Dan, how you doing?
What's going on, Connor?
I'm doing well. Hopefully we get some news the next few days. We get a GM, a head coach in the building. As much as I love covering a search more than I do the draft, it's gotten to the point it's a little overkill where we're interviewing Mike Loxley and Jeff Ulbrich. So it's like, come on, let's get a head coach, let's get a GM in here, and then time to transition to the draft. I want everything done by February 1st, the absolute latest. Ideally, I want a GM in here before the Senior Bowl, which is like a week from today. So that's when people make the trip down for practices. So it's at the point, like, come on, let's wrap this up here. What's on your mind in Jetland?
Well, again, number one, I appreciate you for having me on right now. You know, I'm going to keep it brief and whatnot. I mean, obviously, we do need our GM first and foremost. We can't do things backwards like the Jets have been doing in the past, getting a coach, then firing a GM halfway through, and then going. They have to knock this out of the park right now. Again, the guy from the assistant GM for the Eagles, that's my number one guy. I would love him. That's the guy. You know, he's under Howie Roseman, right?
Roseman, yes.
Roseman. You know, he knows the ins and outs and whatnot. He was a firsthand man. The other guy is Greenberg, who I would love, but now they need to hit a home run with the head coach. And the head coach, to me, you got to think outside the box. I mean, honestly, we have to look at the offensive side of the ball. We want the next great quarterback, right? And you can't have a defensive-minded coach in there thinking that you're going to hit it off with whoever is the draft class number one guy there, right? Shedeur Sanders, we're going to trade all the way up for him. I don't want him. A lot of baggage there. And my guy is Josh McCown. Oh, what has he done? Who is he? Choice. Go for it. The guy is passionate. He has been around the minds of the NFL offensive style. You know, again, being under O'Connell, seeing what that room was all about to bring the best out of Sam Darnold.
Yep.
My man, 27 years old, and it took him kind of a big journey. And, you know, unfortunately, J.J. McCarthy got injured. But at least, I'm going to preface it this way, because I don't see this draft class being great.
No.
But if you get someone like McCown in here, you will have the option of the Minnesota Vikings quarterbacks, whether it's Sam or J.J. McCarthy. Now, a lot of people might say, no, J.J. is out of the question. What Sam Darnold did this season was make the Vikings a contender. And I get it. It was a one and done type of thing. Things happen.
It was a
every game.
Season, though.
Yeah. Who would trade for that? Like you and I, we would love to have a show for a playoff game and with a trajectory. All right, we got eliminated. There's something to look forward to. But now, like one of our callers on the Jets Afterburners, his name is Armand. He has been saying it for the longest. He's like, oh, my man, yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, I'm hiding from the cops, so, you know, I got to look good, you know. Anyway, so one thing led to another. Sam Darnold, in my opinion, the Vikings will probably, as Armand had said for the longest, will franchise him. So now the Vikings are in a position to checkmate anyone. So someone like the Jets, who might have McCown as head coach, might say, all right, you know what? We will not give you a first for Sam. We'll give you, let's say, well, we have a second rounder dangling. We'll give you that second rounder. Bam. They can move on with JJ. Or
I don't think they're going to do that. I don't mean to cut you off there. I really don't think they're going to do that, just because someone who's coming off 2 leg surgeries, who hasn't proven anything at the NFL level, and to give up a second-round pick for someone who played like a top 5, top 7
right.
quarterback this season, I think if they were to trade him, they would ask for a first and then some. At this point, I think they're going to tag him, say, "Show us what you did again." Tag him, have McCarthy sit back. I don't think either one of them are leaving the building. I think that's one.
I beg to differ, man, because
Okay.
it's a business where you have to capitalize and you have to surround either one of those quarterbacks, because you can't go into the next season. Like, let's say JJ, for instance, everything's based off of potential. And let's say the Jets and McCown has been in that building and he's our head coach. And he says, you know what, to the new GM, whoever it is, if I were you, I'd pull the trigger and trade for JJ. All right, what's it going to cost us? What, our 7th rounder, our 7th first overall pick. That's too steep. But no, I wouldn't rule it out of the question, Connor. I wouldn't rule it out. Why? I'm going to tell you something. Brett Favre was selected in the 2nd round by the Atlanta Falcons. The following year, Ron Wolf, who was with the Jets, again, go figure, became the GM of the Green Bay Packers. He had no problem giving up a 1st-round pick to the Atlanta Falcons to acquire Brett Favre. Now, let's look at this hindsight. Let's say we're both Green Bay Packers fans. Would we be upset that we gave a 1st-rounder for the 94 draft? No, we wouldn't have. We wouldn't have, because Brett Favre's a Hall of Famer. I think the most thing that I'm going to let you go. 3 things that we need. 2 of them we're looking for. 1 will be the end result of the first 2 hirings. GM, head coach, we're going to need our quarterback. We're going to need it. We're going to need it. And I think if you get McCown, it's going to be those 2. It's going to be a welcome home party for Darnold. It's going to cost us. Or JJ McCarthy, costing us the 7th. But listen, Connor, what a day, an amazing day for personal reasons. I mean, obviously, if people could read between the lines, America's back, baby. America's back. Anyway, have a great one, man. Hop on the show on Thursday night, baby.
I will, Dan. I appreciate you calling in.
Later.
Have a great day. Dan checking in. Follow his work, NYJD16 on Twitter, Jets Afterburner Podcast. I was about to get this out here, Armand. I just saw it. I quote tweeted it on Twitter. That's why I was typing. So the Jets are going to interview Lance Newmark tomorrow alongside Aaron Glenn, which I think is really, really interesting, because Glenn and Newmark have been floating around as a potential duo as the next regime. You get them both in the building tomorrow. Never say never, but if the Jets are really in love with what they hear during their second interviews, I'm going to say this. No inside information whatsoever. This is just a guess, a prediction off the top of my head. There is a chance, I would say. I'm not going to say it's likely. I'm going to say there is a chance the Jets hire both of those guys tomorrow. Depending on how well it goes, we might have our next head coach and GM in the building tomorrow, which could be really interesting. I'm a huge fan of Glenn. We've spoken about that. I am not the biggest Newmark guy in the world. I'm going to be honest. 28 years with the Lions. He has experience. He's in his first season with the Commanders, as their assistant general manager. The experience scares me. And I've said it before, it's much harder to judge a first-time GM than it is a first-time coordinator. Because when you're looking at a coordinator, you can evaluate what their side of the ball has done over time. With a GM, you don't know how involved this person is in the front office, because we know the general manager gets the final say. I'll use a perfect example. Mike Borgonzi with the Chiefs. We don't know what he's going to be. He could be great. He could be awful. Who drafted Patrick Mahomes? Was it John Dorsey and Brent Veach, or was it Mike Borgonzi? We just don't know this stuff. I'd say we have the most insight in John Eric Sullivan out of the first-time guys they've interviewed from Albert Breer's reports. He's apparently been involved with the cap. He was the first scout to put Jordan Love on their GM's radar. And he, I'm missing one. He played a huge role in the search that landed Matt LaFleur. So I say out of the first-timers, he's the most versatile and is the most experienced, so to speak. Not from a year's perspective, just from his roles, just from what he's done, his roles. Smash the like button. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. 30 of you in the building, 25 likes. Come on, guys. 5 of you have not liked. Please like the video. And if you haven't subscribed already, please hit subscribe. Let's get an exact subscribe. Both completely free. We're at 1,404 subscribers, 2,000 by the draft, 3,000 by the start of the 2025 season. That's the goal. Please make it happen completely free. Get all your questions in the chat. We're going to be sure to answer every single one if you want to call into the show. Click the pinned comment in the chat, and don't forget about our membership raffle. Every membership gets you a ticket. Garrett Wilson signed mini on the wing. Gerbet signed football, free item from our merch store. Channel emoji is what we're giving away. I guess we'll go back to what he said about J.J. McCarthy and I guess I'll go back to what he said about J.J. McCarthy and Sam Darnold. He mentioned everything why the Jets should get J.J. McCarthy. And I didn't particularly disagree with any of his points, but here's the thing. Why would the Vikings trade J.J. McCarthy or Sam Darnold? They're in a great position right now at the quarterback position. At the quarterback position, even at the great spot at the quarterback position. There, no pun intended. I think they're in a great spot right now. So why would they want to deal any of them? If you can bring Sam Darnold back on a franchise tag, you have J.J. McCarthy who's going into the second year of his rookie deal. He's a first-round pick. You still have his fifth-year option. If I'm the Minnesota Vikings, if I'm Kwesi, I think is how you say his first name, the GM, the Princeton economics grad who knew nothing about football, like I don't know why he would want to deal any of them. And Kevin O'Connell being the offensive genius that he is, the former quarterback, they're in a great spot right now. Why would you want to trade either one of those guys? I just don't see it. In the Jet shoes, yes. If you can get a first round, if you can give up a second round pick for him, I would do it. But I just don't see the Vikings wanting to give that up. And also, not to mention, there are some concerns that come with him. He's never taken a snap in the NFL. His college tape wasn't 1,000% promising. And he's coming off 2 knee surgeries, and he hasn't been progressing particularly well. Like, there are some flaws in his game. Let's be real. We don't know what he's like at the NFL level. We haven't seen him take a snap before. I don't get it. We didn't say what's up to everyone in the chat because we had Antwan on, and then we went right to Dan. So I'll say what's up. Rod, good to see you. Caden, tuning in. Caden, appreciate your support. Alan comes in and says, scoop long. Alan, I appreciate it. Cuca Lake Jet fan says, was there something about Greenberg getting another GM interview? The only GM, Cuca Lake Jet fan, to get a second interview is Lance Newmark, who we just broke down. Where are we? Joe Grana tuning in as long as we get Flores. If we get Glenn, Flores, and McCown as OC, I'll be happy. Well, Joe, I hate to break it to you, but it's been reported that McCown's not taking an OC job. So if you narrow it down to head coach, that's probably my top 3. First, McCown for me. Second, Glenn. 3, Flores. That's my top 3 right now. Brian Glick tuning in. Are we all preparing for Jamie Sherwood to head to Atlanta? I would love for the Jets to get him under contract even prior to bringing in a new head coach. I think here's the thing, Brian. Jamie Sherwood is a solid linebacker when he fits the scheme. This year under Jeff Ulbrich, he fit the scheme and he thrived. The question is, I don't know too much about Flores, and I know about Flores and Glenn's schemes. I just don't know if Jamie Sherwood would be okay in either one of them. So that's a question. I would love to bring him back after what we saw. He's still on the younger side. I'd give him a nice 3 to 4 year deal, but I could see Ulbrich trying to bring him over there. And then a defensive-minded head coach, too, in Raheem Morris. I could see that. My Holy King coming in, Jets, Mets, Nets. Yes, sir. Got the Mets hat, the Jets jersey. Do I have anything Nets around me? I don't have anything Nets related around me. They're terrible anyways. It doesn't even 14-29 they are now. Tanks in full effect. Full effect. I think there was a 30-point, 40-point line. I didn't even watch the game last night. I didn't even watch the game for OKC last night. Billy SBC tuning in. This will be an argument between experienced head coach and coordinator. Like, here's the thing. I mentioned it with Antwan. I've said it the past few shows. When you say experienced head, here's my thing. I'd rather go with Josh McCown. I'd rather go with Joe Brady, Bobby Slowick over Arthur Smith and Matt Nagy. They're not head coaches, but they're young, innovative offensive minds who have a ton of upside. Like Arthur Smith and Matt Nagy just simply aren't intriguing to me. They might have a higher floor than a Joe Brady, Bobby Slowick, or Josh McCown, but they have such a low ceiling compared to Bobby Slowick, Joe Brady, Josh McCown. They might have a lower floor, but a ceiling that's through the roof. Like, let's be real here. Billy, I prefer an experienced head coach with a staff. Love Glenn, but that's a coordinator again. I feel like if you go the first time route, the thing I love about Josh McCown, he's a leader. Let's be real, guys. The head coaching job, I threw out the statistic earlier when I had Antwan on the show. First 20 minutes. If you didn't see that, be sure to rewind once the show's done. Great stuff with Antwan, as always. 14 of the 32 head coaches in the league actually call plays. The job of a head coach in this league, I've tried to hammer this down so many times, is to be a CEO, a leader, and a mentor. Not necessarily a defensive or offensive schematical genius, wizard, whatever you want to call it. Like I said, only 14 call plays. You give me Josh McCown with Doug Peterson, Mike Pettin, and Lovie Smith as the staff around him, the main core pieces. Sign me up for that. Josh McCown is a beloved member of the Jets organization. He was with them for a few seasons. A journeyman quarterback. He's a mentor. He's a leader. He's a motivator. He was born to lead. You can give me Frank Reich as an assistant coach, someone else who's connected to McCown. Sign me up if that's the case. Harlan tuning in. Harlan, I appreciate your support. Phil's in the chat. I appreciate you tuning in. Ace of Spade. I don't think Antwan said specifically he's not a Hallaby fan though. Appreciate you tuning in though, Ace. Let's see, where are we? BC tuning in. BC, I appreciate your support. Brian says Flores did not scare me. Gruden's off-field stuff. Well, the Gruden thing is completely different. Flores, it scares me a little, but I have confidence that he learned in his mistakes. And Antwan, who covered the Dolphins for I think 6 or 7 seasons, has connections to their organization, said he's spoken to people, and they've spoken to people in close to Flores and his camp, and they said they strongly feel he learned from his mistakes. So I think that's important to note there too. Alan coming in, love the passion. CL 100% right, Alan. I appreciate it. Wildwave says don't let Glenn leave the building. Wildwave, I wouldn't be surprised if the Jets offer him something tomorrow, but he just wants to go to New Orleans and see what's up. I could see a world where the Jets decide to do that. I wouldn't shock me. Brian Glade, Gruden offended me with the emails. It's my opinion that he doesn't deserve the privilege of coaching the team I love. He's suing the NFL too. I think it's too many legal things would need to happen for him to actually coach again. Barney Miller. All Woody has to do is get out of the damn way. I'm gonna play a clip too from the Commanders ownership group, Magic Johnson and Josh Harris, the two owners over there. I'm gonna try to get it up on the screen. But here's the thing: I've said it the past few shows when people brought up meddling during these interviews and stuff. Woody Johnson has never meddled when he's trusted his head coach and general manager. He meddled this year because he felt things were going off the rails, and he didn't trust Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh, so he felt he needed to step in. Under Rex Ryan, under Mike Tannenbaum, Woody Johnson never meddled. He never meddled. He's only done it when he does not feel confident in who's in charge. This, I'm going to pull this up, courtesy of Boy Green. Thank Boy Green, guys, for tweeting this out. Similar to what you said, Barney, about Woody Johnson. Woody Johnson has to be listening to this. It's from the Commanders ownership group, Josh Harris and Magic Johnson, who obviously the Commanders just went through this rapid turnaround. They're new owners after Dan Snyder, basically was forced to sell the team. Listen to this. Just listen to this from Harris and Johnson.
No, this is serious. You said, what does it take? New vision, new owner with a strategy, picking the right people. First, our coach, Coach Quinn, Adam Peters, and then we all step out the way and let them do their job.
Talent, culture, and people.
There it is.
Talent, culture, and people.
So that's it. Don't make this about us. It's about those guys.
Yeah, well,
Magic, did you envision it happening this fast? 2 years?
Quarterback.
How could you?
Got to get a quarterback.
We'll see you guys in Detroit. It's gonna be cool.
Make it about those guys.
Woody Johnson has to have that same idea. That is the vision of owners that have success in the league. I mean, come on. Let's be real. You hear what he said? New vision, new strategy, new people, new culture. Now, obviously, unless something groundbreaking that's illegal comes out about Woody Johnson, he's not going to have to sell the team. But still, you hear what they said? Get the right people in here. They hired Adam Peters and they hired Dan Quinn. Step out of the way and let them do their jobs. Let the football people make football decisions. That's what you have to do. That's the blueprint that solid teams come. That's the blueprint that elite teams in the NFL follow. Let's see. Where are we? We answer that. Jerome tuning in. Happy Monday, Connor. Jerome, I appreciate you tuning in, and I appreciate your support on the program. I agree with this, Wildwave. Both Glenn and McCown would be home run hires. McCown's like one. Glenn is right behind him for me. I'm in on both those guys. Jimmy, Jets tuning in, our leader in the membership raffle. He has, let's see how many tickets he has. 45 tickets, leading our guy Rick Kent with 15 he has a 15-point lead over Rick Kent. That's the right wording there. He says, why would Glenn go down to New Orleans if they offer him something? I thought the Jets were his dream job. He's someone who I think would want to explore his options even further, just because he has ties to New Orleans. I just don't know if the Jets offer him something tomorrow, why he would jump right in. I know it's his dream job, but I could see him wanting to explore what they have to offer in New Orleans. Zachary Berner in the building. Glenn and Newmark signed by tomorrow. I said it earlier on. I think you probably just tuned in. I said it earlier. I think there is a possibility that they bring both those guys in tomorrow. I think there's a chance. And I wish they did this today because I was off from school today, so it would have been great. So if anything happens, I'll be on after 7 p.m. 7:30. I'll be on about 7:30 tomorrow, no matter what. But it'll be even better if something happens. We're trying to go daily here on the show. Taking care of business, it only matters about the QB regardless of everything else. It doesn't matter. You need someone who's going to develop the quarterback, though, taking care of business. Who do you feel more comfortable working with, whoever they draft, whether it's a Drew Aller next year, Jalen Milroe, Jackson Dart, any of these guys? Is it like Josh McCown? Is it Brian Flores? Is it Aaron Glenn? You need someone who's going to be able to develop the quarterback. Robert Saleh and his staff unable to develop Zach Wilson. So it's just, this team hasn't had a franchise quarterback never, really. It's crazy. You need someone who's going to be able to come in and develop the quarterback, and I think Josh McCown could do just that for the organization. 47 of you guys in the building. Let's see how many likes we're at. 29. Okay, come on, guys. 18 of you still have not liked the video. Please hit like. It helps the channel grow a lot. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Also, completely free. Let's get an exact sub count. We started the show with 1,402. We're at 1,405. So keep hitting subscribe. It means the world, helps the program grow tremendously. Spoke a lot about the membership raffle. Don't want to hammer it too much. I appreciate your support on the program. Leaderboards down below. Garrett Wilson signed mini helmet. Winker Bet signed football. Free item from the merch store. Channel membership emoji is what we're giving away at the end of this month. And how many you gift depends how much goes into the prize pool. We're gonna add some more prizes to next month, which will be great. BC comes in and says Magic Johnson wearing Commanders gear. Yeah, he's a minority owner. I think he owns like 5 or 6% in the Commanders organization. Burner, is Newmark good? I'm not the biggest fan of Newmark overall. That's what I'm going to say about him. I see why people like him, though. He was with the Lions for 28 years, and in all different roles. Let's make that clear. And then now he's in his first season with the Commanders. If they're going to go the first-time GM route, I would much prefer an Alec Hallaby, a Mike Greenberg, a John Eric Sullivan. Out of the first-timers, he's probably 5th or 6th on my list. Out of everyone, he's probably 8th or 9th. If the Jets had Daniels, then ownership wouldn't matter. Here's the thing, though, taking care of business. Jaden Daniels, players of Jaden Daniels' caliber in the draft do not grow on trees. I mean, look at his success at the number 2 overall pick compared to someone who was picked one spot ahead of him, Caleb Williams. And it's just one season, too. So, guys like Jaden Daniels who come in right away and have immediate success, not guaranteed at all. It's a very big if to hit on a quarterback to the amount that the Commanders did with Jaden Daniels. Where are we? Teresa Ice comes in and says the Jets also need a good kicker. There's a ton of kickers available. Teresa, free agency. I think Greg Joseph. Maybe the Jets bring Greg. No, they signed Anders Carlson, a futures reserves contracts the other day. I saw that. Maybe he's the kicker next year. I hope not, though. He was inconsistent at best. Alan, I don't want to be the guinea pig of the Brian Flores recovery tour hard pass. You're not a big Flores guy. Wild Wave wants John Eric Sullivan. He's intriguing. He's the most intriguing. Him and Hallaby, I'd say, for the first timers, are probably the 2 most intriguing. Some of the highest upside. I like that Eric Sullivan's really worked his way all the way up. I mean, so is Greenberg. Greenberg has been with the Bucs for 15 seasons. Starting as he's a football administration intern with the Jets under Tannenbaum, which is really interesting because obviously Tannenbaum's assisting with this search. So a lot could happen over the next few days. Hopefully we get some news tomorrow that I'm able to come on and break down. We're going to wrap up here soon. Last chance to call in on the show. Use the pinned comment in the chat to do so. If you want to get your final questions, comments, thoughts in, last chance to give memberships. Last chance for everything. Show number 2 on the day. Second day in a row we did two shows in a day. Thanks to you guys for tuning in and wanting the content. If you ever have any suggestions or you just want to come in, get exclusive channel updates, talk Jets, please join the Discord in the description down below. I think we have 30 of you now in the Discord. Please join it. 50 of you in the building right now. Let's see. 34 of you like the video, so please like and then join the Discord down below. Great content, great exclusive updates, great Jets talk. Please join it. Fun stuff in there, as always. So be sure to check that out. Like I said, any content suggestions you want to see this offseason, anything you want me to, add to the show, please feel free to throw it in the Discord, throw it in the chat. Keep supporting. It means a lot. Smash the like, subscribe to the channel. The channel's really growing thanks to you guys smashing the like button and hitting subscriber goals. 2,000 subscribers by the draft, 3,000 by the start of the regular season. That is the goal. Let's do it, guys. We can. Where are we? Appreciate you, Brian Glick. Another solid show. Keep it up. Brian, I appreciate it. You're in the Discord. So if you want to be just like Brian and 30 other of our listeners, please join the Discord. My Oli King comes in and says, Connor, do you want Aaron Rodgers to come back? I don't want Aaron Rodgers to come back next season. I can go on and on, make a whole show of it. I could go for 7 hours talking about why I do not want Aaron Rodgers back next season. I do not want him back at all. Whether it's from a cap ramification standpoint, you're just going to delay the money till 2026, 2027, which puts you even in a deeper hole for the future. I think the Jets' best option right now is to call it a bad move, pay them all $49 million next season, move on, whether it's a Tyrod Taylor, Justin Fields. You take a dart throw with Jalen Milroe, Riley Leonard, Jackson Dart, one of these guys. Anyone but Rodgers, really. So that's where I am at the quarterback search. Brian says I'm ready to start talking about what UFAs and free agents we're keeping. We're getting into draft and free agency, Brian, right after this search ends. That was my plan once the season ended. I'm like, all right, I'm going to talk about the search until they get someone in. So hopefully we'll be on. I'll be on about draft and free agency in a week or two once everything's settled. I'm planning on doing. It's going to be tough. I don't remember exactly what I did last year because I have to go back and rewatch the content, but still, the channel was still starting to grow there. I mean, we just hit 1,000 subscribers at the start of the season, which is great. So I have to go back and look at what I did from balancing free agency and draft talk. We did so much draft talk last year. We what did we do? We started in like the day after the season, and we did basically every day until the draft. So a ton of draft talk. I'm happy that this search kind of split it up. This coaching search gave us something fun to talk about, evaluating these coaches and GMs while splitting up when we talk about draft and free agency. I'm going to say once we get a GM, I'll probably make the first week. I think we might do it like week by week or day by day, depending on what happens. Or we could just do like latest Jets news shows and open it up to you guys for Q&As and then talk about free agency and draft. I have some really fun plans for the draft this season. I've watched so much film on all these prospects already. So much film, like days worth of film on these prospects. I have scouting reports on all the quarterbacks and all the running backs. We're going to keep that going. So let me know again if you guys have any suggestions, Discord down below, merch store down below, smash the like, subscribe to the channel. I appreciate all your support. That'll do it for me. Show number 2 on the day. We will be back tomorrow. I am your host, Connor Long, signing off. JTS, Jets, Jets, Jets.